Hey there, this is Chad from Zombified Shark. Welcome back. I've hung in there. This is episode 20 of our Thor walkthrough series. We still got a lot to go, but we've gotten to the sequencer. We've worked our way from top down. We've gotten all the way through all of these parts, and we're down to the sequencer, and this is a confusing one, and a lot of people just ignore that it even exists, or at least I did for a long time, but it's crazy how much it does. So let's dive into it together and see if we can't understand how this sequencer works. Let's begin. First off, the first button says run, but run doesn't work if you don't have this set to something. So you got repeat, you got one shot, you got step. So we're gonna put it on repeat because I think we all know what repeat means. So there it is, repeating one note over and over, machine gun style. Okay. So if you're trying to use this in a song, you know, that run button, you can automate the run button there. But if you've got this set to repeat and I hit play, then it starts playing. So that's something to be aware of, that if you're trying to use the sequencer, but you don't want it running the whole song, then you can automate it. And you can also automate the repeat one shot step off. So there you go. So repeat, you know, we know what it is. It's just going to go over and over ad infinitum. One shot is going to go one time. So here, just for some change. And derp. There we go. It went one time. Then step is going to be more of, you're going to trigger it. There you go. So that's where every time I'm hitting run, it's triggering it. So, and there's a couple of ways you could take advantage of that. So one of them is automation, like we were just talking about, where you automate this run button, and you're triggering the run button to go one note at a time. And you might be saying to yourself what I said to myself initially, like, why do I need to automate one step at a time? But if let's say you made some crazy sound, and you want to be able to trigger it over and over, or it's, you know, over time it's mutating and modulating or something, but you don't want it going constantly. You want it to be a little different every time. Then this is a way to do that. So like a crash or something like that. Something really unique. You know, there's a lot of instances. I'll let you figure it out. I'll stop talking about that. You're smart people. You know, you got this far. So let's talk about all of our different settings here. Forward, run, forward, reverse. It's playing backwards. Pendulum, 1. So it goes to the end and it plays the note, then it plays the note again and goes back, goes to the front, plays the note again, goes back the other way. Pendulum 2 does not do a double tap on there. So you would get out of time if you had eventually you're going to get off, because it's going to play 16 notes or how many ever steps you have it for, and then immediately swing back, so it won't stay in time. So just be aware of pendulum 1, pendulum 2. That's what they're going to do different than random. It's random. Just going to trigger those notes randomly. And yeah, that's what all those do. So far, I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. And I hope you caught that there. So I switched it to one shot and I hit it random. As soon as it plays all the notes, it stops. And then step, random. So the point there is that you can mix and match these. So, and notice where it stopped there. And then pendulum 1. So stops there. So there you go. Now, next, let's talk about sync. I don't know if I ever use this non-sync option, but it's there. So you can, depending on how you're using this, because you'll see in a second, you can use it as like an LFO. You can use it, you can use it to just sequence notes. You can use it as an external trigger device. There's much cause to not use sync, and you see it jumps really between all of these pretty fast there. It jumps between all of these really quick. If you hold shift and then click and drag, you'll get smaller increments, so you can customize that a little bit more. As opposed to boom, it's flying through it. So I'm holding shift on my keyboard, click and drag, and it's doing them, it'll do it one at a time if that's what you need. So anyways, sync your loop to time, slow it down, whatever you got. So that's, I hope that makes sense to you. Now let's get into this. This next part took me a while to understand. I'm not going to lie. I'm not ashamed. So number one, note. All right. So every one of these it's a note, right? Okay. So while I've got note selected, that's what that's going to control. This octave is the range. So if I have it on 2, and you can actually see the notes kind of wiggle a little bit. All right, so if I have it on 2, then these are only 2 octaves. So this is going from C2 to C4, right? Then if I have it on 4, this goes from C1 to C5. Okay, you with me so far? Then if I have it on full, it's the entire range of notes. So it's from C-2 to G8. It's a full keyboard and then some. So we'll just really hear. Let's just hear it all. So now when we hit run, so here, well, you can figure out why you would want to do that. A thing I always struggled with the sequencer is just going through and selecting one note at a time. That drives me crazy, having to do it that way. But the shift key is your friend. So just, be sure to use it. Don't drive yourself crazy like I did. Hold down shift, and as you're clicking, it goes a little bit slower. It's not so painful. So yeah, that's what the note does, and that's what the octave range of the notes do. So next, you got velocity. So that is the velocity of this note series, right? So it goes from, 127 to 0. And if you have created a patch where the velocity is going to affect the filter or the timbre, resonance, whatever it is, then there's your reason for messing with your velocity levels. So, so here, one shot it, and so now I got my velocity turned on in my amp, and I am going to make velocity affect something. So MIDI key velocity, it's going to go to filter resonance, right? So now let's run it. So it's really resonant, if you can't tell. So I'm gonna a couple of these notes here. I'm gonna back it way down, and we should hear a little bit difference in these sections. So yeah, a little bit of difference there. So that's what your velocity is for. You know, it's the same as if you're playing it on a keyboard, but you can take it to that next level and get it to do more. So now gate length, this is another one that kind of confused me for a little bit. It defaults to 75% of the gate. So if you're wanting these notes to play continuously, then you got to bump up the gate length. So we're going to bump up the gate length. And the flip side of that is, you know, you want some short notes. So let's play those. So right there at the end, we had some shortish notes. It wasn't a big difference, but they were shorter. Let's fix these notes here, and let's go to 2 octave and make this not so crazy. All right. So if I do this with full sustain, so gate length, 100%. So short notes. So now you can hear it. I just didn't have my sustain up enough. So hopefully now that makes sense. Step duration. Okay, so this, I literally just didn't even know how to use this for the longest time until I started messing with it, and then figured it out after much trial and error. And it's still really confusing to me, to be honest, but let's try to break it down. By default, whatever your rate is here is what every one of these, how long each one of these is going to last, right? So let's do it with quarter notes, just because 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's one measure, right? 4 quarter notes equals 1 measure, and 4, 4. So each one of these is worth 1 note. So we run it. Sorry. Okay, so what if I want a note to be twice as long? So then I click and drag. All right, now it's 8 quarter notes. So when it gets to this, that note should be twice as long. We'll make sure the gate length is appropriate. Yeah, it is. So here we go. So you can see it paused a little bit longer on that note. Now the problem is, if you've got a repeating loop, then now you have an uneven number of you've just made it into odd meter. So you just made it an odd meter. What are you going to do? So then you have to make it make sense, unless it's a one shot, or it doesn't matter if it's a random sequence. But you have to kind of add up your notes. So as it was, we had, 4 measures, and then we doubled this one so that 1 note was equivalent to 4 quarter notes, but you have 1 left over. So you have to make one of them in 5/4, and then you should have 5 measures. So easiest way, let's turn on the click. So it was off by 1, it looked like. So you got to do some math to figure it out. So if I make, and you could do this lots of different ways, because you can make all of these shorter or longer. But when you're trying to make rhythms with this, and you want them to be a regular loop, that can get real confusing real fast. So just kind of something to be aware of, that you may have to do a little bit of math to make this work right. So it's trial and error for me every time I have to do it, to be honest. So hopefully the step duration, you know what it is at least, and have an idea of how to use it, and just know you're going to have to play with it a little bit. All right, so let's get into the curves. So you've got these 2 unassigned curve options, and that's where your modulation matrix comes in here. So if you click it, curve 1, and you can send these curves to whatever. So I'm going to send it to here, to oscillator 2 and noise mod. Let's do the color one. And so we're gonna make it basically change color from darker to brighter. So by the end of it, hopefully it will be noticeably bright. If I did that correctly, let's see. And so I think you can hear that. I can hear it. But maybe this one will be more obvious here if I send it to the frequency. So you can hear as it goes, it's moving up this frequency chart, or this knob here, moving up the spectrum. So that's just, and then curve 2 is exactly the same thing. You just send it to something different. So you can kind of see, hopefully you can see how ridiculous that this can get when you start using these curves and all the other insanity. Like like this step sequencer is really, really powerful. So all right, so I've sent S curve 2 to oscillator 1 pitch. Maybe a little bit too extreme. So I think you get the idea. It's a little crazy madness going on here, which, there's some things are independent. Some things are happening independently of other things in regards to what notes you're playing here and what this curve is doing to the oscillator. So, yeah, it's starting to sound just a little bit like madness, so might as well add a delay in there to make it even crazier, and I'm sure some chorus while we're at it, why not? So yeah, steps right here, it just changes the number of steps. So depending on what you're trying to do with it, if you want it to be even, or how many ever steps you want it to play for. Short loop. And then this is a way you can control that problem we were talking about earlier, where if you're using your step duration and you're getting confused, you can cut off notes, or if things too long, or whatever it may be. It's just a way to kind of control your sequence a little further. And then the reset button. So let's hit it. Boop. Reset. Reset. And we're back to just one note. Reset everything. So use that reset button with care. So just a couple of examples here. So here I've got a kick sequence. Just a common way, something that's commonly used. You can make your own little drum machine here. And here I've carried that idea to an extreme and made an actual drum machine just using Thor's. So let's open it up. So my kick sequence, you just heard it, there it is. Snare sequence, so I've got them all turned off. There's my snare I made. And then I got a hi-hat sequence. There's my hi-hat, and notice I used the noise oscillators on both of those. And then I've got a delay on my hi-hat just to add a little something to it. And I didn't make a really fancy combinator here. I just wanted to use a kind of a basic example of what you can do, but that's one thing you can do with the sequencer. I mean, it's so powerful. Really all I'm doing there is just triggering notes. When you get in, you could trigger notes, then you can use those curve buttons as like alternate LFOs that are going to something else. Then you can send them out to other devices and trigger them in other ways. And when you start getting into using the sequencer to its full power, it gets silly. It's the point where stuff just starts to get insane. And just for an example, here's one more patch that I created. So this is step sequencer using the S curves. So you can see it running back, and see I've turned off all of my notes here, and then I got my two different curves, and I've routed them. One curve is going to filter frequency, one curve is going to amp pan. So so there you go. That's just a way where you can use the S curves to affect other sounds. So nothing crazy, just something for fun. So hopefully by now you have an understanding of what the sequencer can do and some of its power. If I forgot something, or you'd like to hear something covered more in depth, I can create an addendum to any of this, and just leave me a comment below and let me know, and then like and subscribe if you appreciate this content. In the next episode, we are finally gonna talk about the modulation matrix. You've seen me use it a lot in this series so far. So we're gonna talk about it, explain it a little bit more, and see some examples, because that is really where so much of Thor's power truly is. Lightning bolts from the sky, thunder and lightning. So thanks for watching, and I hope you'll tune in to the next one, because it's going to be a good one. Cheers.